Hello everyone, my name is VoidDoctor, and welcome back to another episode on the InfinityCraft server. And today, we begin this episode in front of the medieval blacksmith shop that I constructed last episode, and I'm still fairly happy with how this build turned out. It's not my favorite build here, but I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. It specifically just adds kind of a bit of atmosphere to the place because of the big chimney sort of puffing out smoke continuously. Even it's actually especially at night with shaders on, this place looks awesome. Actually, I don't know, the chimney sort of glowing looks very nice, but not very happy with the interior considering that it has none, except for these little mini furnaces which I got from a wandering trader. I love these are so funny. But yeah, I'm not. The interior has much to be desired. But in other news, I've actually, I've replaced the bamboo farm with a sugarcane farm because this sugarcane farm back here was pretty much, it was not producing enough sugarcane at all. It just wasn't doing enough. So I just replaced the bamboo with sugarcane because I'm pretty sure, or we didn't have enough librarians, and I'm pretty sure not librarians, I'm pretty sure we didn't have enough Fletchers to really reasonably trade enough sticks to make enough emeralds for it to make sense to have a bamboo farm. And now we have no Fletchers because they somehow died. So I have no other use for sticks, or at least, farming sticks. I can just get it from, chopping down trees. So there's no reason to have a bamboo farm. So a sugarcane farm just kind of made more sense to me, and it just produces more sugarcane, which is much more useful, especially now that I have more gunpowder and a reason to have fireworks. It's amazing to have, be mass producing sugarcane. I mean, I still wouldn't call this mass producing. There's only 13 sugarcane in there, but it's still quite a large amount. But I've also been trading pumpkins and paper to librarians and farmers to get more emeralds, and it's been going quite well. I mean, I have a lot of emeralds, as you can see here. This is just from a few minutes of trading, like 15-20 minutes of trading, so it's not going bad at all, actually. But the main thing I'd like to work on in today's episode is actually getting some sort of shop going, because I really like the idea of having shops on the server. I feel like it just sort of, brings together the players on the server, because especially on InfinityCraft, it always seems like everyone's sort of off away working on their own projects, sort of just progressing in the game. So I think having something to bring people together, like maybe a shopping district. Actually, at the beginning of the server, Too Much Mustard and I sort of had the idea that just Spawn would be the shopping district, and that, or not spawn directly, but just spawn, the spawn area would be the shopping district, and it would sort of be just a community hub, maybe a few community farms there as well. So yeah, I just think it's cool. It's a cool idea to sort of have the shopping district be a community sort of gathering place. And my idea for a shop is actually, I think it's pretty cool and pretty funny too. It's sort of like a traveling wagon, but the stock is anything that I have large quantities of, or just sort of a commodity that I have, or something that people really don't want to gather. So something like stone. It's annoying to gather, and I'm gonna sound stupid if I say I have a lot of it. I have a reasonable amount. I don't actually have that much, but I have a reasonable amount. So, stone could be something I'd sell if I had more of it, or specifically things that not a lot of people have a lot of. So honeycomb or candles. Definitely something that I could sell at a high price, or even things like copper, but I think Too Much Mustard might have a monopoly on that, or more copper than I do, and I'm fairly sure he's aging it in an industrial scale, actually. So definitely not going to be selling large quantities of copper at this shop. But I just think that this is a shop design that I really like. I've had it on other servers, third-party servers, not third-party servers, but servers that I don't own, and it worked fairly well. It didn't sell a lot because I didn't play on those servers very much, but it definitely, I also just like the idea of selling whatever I have, lots of, because it means I don't have to constantly be gathering certain resources because it's just whatever I have lying around. So I think I'm first going to sort of figure out what exactly I want this shop to look like, because I'm not sure if I want to actually go for a traveling wagon, or maybe just like a, I don't know, a camper van or something like that. So I think I'm going to try and see what I want this shop to look like first. Alright folks, so welcome to my building test world. First of all, this is where many of my failed builds reside, including a mountain, a hot air balloon that looks very bad, 2 wizard towers that I planned on building last season, a castle, again, that I planned on building a lot of these are built from last season that I planned, but this little wagon right here is what I want. This is kind of what I want to the shop to look like. Not exactly, maybe not down to the exact block, but got some animals just hanging out, sort of adding to the atmosphere. Got a bunch of barrels, because instead of using chests, barrels, I prefer using barrels because they have, they only take up 1 block of space, and I think they add to the feel of the build. Bat, get out of here. And the hay, again, just I feel like adds to the, sort of atmosphere that the build provides. So I think on the InfinityCraft server, well, I'm going to head back onto the InfinityCraft server, and I'm going to head on down to spawn and begin, or first of all, gather the things that I'm going to need just straight out of my storage hall, all the, the blocks that I'm going to need to build this, and then head on down to spawn and get, find a little plot of land that I'd like to start the shopping district in, because this is basically going to be the start of the shopping district on InfinityCraft Season 2. And yes, we did have shops last season. Too Much Mustard had a shop, but I don't think many people shopped at it. And again, I had the brewery, but again, like, nobody shopped at the brewery. So we did have shops, but they weren't really necessary because, we had a ton of villagers, so shops weren't super necessary because you could buy all the things that people were selling. But I think this season I'm going to try and sell things that villagers don't already sell. So potentially I don't get my business taken by NPCs. Alright, so I've made it down to the sort of general spawn area. I don't know where spawn is exactly. I'm actually fairly sure I'm fairly sure it's actually right down there, sort of in that little patch of sunflowers over there. And may I just say, this is one of the most picturesque places to build the shopping district. This, I don't know, there's just something sort of enchanting to me about having this whole place sort of being like a valley, or on most sides just being surrounded by mountains. And then over there's actually 1.18 terrain just over behind these mountains. Actually, I'm fairly sure those are windswept hills right there, if I remember correctly. So this is very close to 1.18 terrain, which is nice. So maybe we could have like a little snow village or something up on top of those mountains. But more importantly, this is also going to be the site, the location of the shopping district. I didn't know if the site made sense. So this is going to be the location of the shopping district. And I'm fairly sure I want to build my little traveling wagon up on top of this hill. And when I say traveling wagon, I don't mean that the wagon's actually going to move. I just mean that it looks like it would move. Maybe it would move from town to town, like kind of like a trading wagon, except it's definitely not a wandering trader because those guys suck. So definitely not a wandering trader of any sort, but more just like a little, market that kind of moves from town to town. So I think I'm going to begin sort of setting up where exactly I want to have the wagon, and then probably going to terraform this or something. I don't know. This looks strange. Hold on. Never mind. I don't think I'm going to terraform this. I have a very cool idea for what I want to do with this, actually. So I think I'm just going to kind of get a site set up, and then I'm going to build the wagon. I just realized how low my elytra are in durability. I don't know if this is going to be enough to get back to the base. We'll see about that in a little bit. Alright, so the wagon's done, and I'm still fairly happy with how it turned out. I think the one that I built in my creative mode testing world just had a bit more atmosphere because it had the sheep on it, and those kind of just, the little sounds that they make and stuff just added a bit of atmosphere. But I'm still fairly happy with how this wagon turned out, and it gets the job done. I actually laid out the barrels so that they had, you had this center little walking space that you could kind of move around the shop a bit. Maybe move this barrel back a tad, like there. Yeah, that looks a bit better. No, because that looks, yeah, I think this is, yeah, maybe this is better because it has like a central little walking area, so you can kind of look around, sort of browse what's in the barrels without being sort of overwhelmed with information, barrels sort of everywhere just looking crazy. So yeah, I'm actually fairly happy with how the actual build itself turned out. But now it's time to stock it, and I'm not excited for stocking a shop in the early game. In the early game, stocking shops is never fun, but basically the shop's just gonna be whatever I have, sizable amounts of. So it's not gonna be super complicated to stock, but it's still gonna be annoying. So I think I'm going to sort of write down a list of things that I'd like to sell, like, this week. Things that I'd like to have in the shop. Or maybe just the first sort of set of things that I want to sell. And then once they start running out of stock, I can either just restock them if I have more of them, or I can just, you know, get more. I can just think of more things to sell. So yeah, I think I'm just going to try and, like, write down a list of things that I would like to sell at the shop, right, you know, currently, things that I have a lot of. Alright, so I've gotten all my little shop listings written down in this lovely little book right here. I'm not going to fully fill up the shop right now because there's not a ton of things that I think I have enough of to really make a decent profit off of. And they're fairly standard things, so stone, 3 diamonds per stack. I think that's not the best deal, but it's how I'm gonna, it's not an awful deal either, and I'm pretty much the only person selling it. If someone else starts to sell stone and sells it for cheaper, I can decrease the price, of course. Cobblestone, 3 diamonds per stack. Copper, 4 diamonds per 16, because I don't have a ton of it. I have it in block form over here. I only have 35 blocks, so I'll just convert that down into ingots. Honeycomb, 4 diamonds per 4, which basically means it's just 1 diamond per 1 honeycomb, because slight awkward thing about the honeycomb, I realized it's now finite because apparently all my bees died, so yeah, that's a little bit awkward, but I'm still going to be selling the 16 that I have. I'm going to probably just there, take that out, leave that one there, 16, see? So that's 4 stacks of 4 honeycomb, so that's decent amount of diamonds from that. And then golden carrots, 3 diamonds per stack. They're fairly cheap. I could probably sell them for 2. In fact, yeah, let's just change that to 2 diamonds per stack because there's just no reason to not. 2 diamonds per stack just seems a bit more reasonable since I have too many golden carrots. And then also deep slate, 3 diamonds per stack. Same with all the other stones because I have a lot of, I mean a lot of deep slate. So I'm just going to get this smelting in the super smelter. And then I'll probably get ready to start stocking the shop. And yes, I do have enough stone to stock the shop. It's actually kind of funny. I had to start a new quarry because the old one was tiny. So I started a new one, and it's basically just it's also just a fancier version of the old quarry as well. So yeah, it's kind of a problem. And that's not the stone that I got from intentionally just going to the quarry to dig stone. It's the stone that I got from trying to just make the quarry, like get the quarry started, just getting it looking good. So I'm a little bit scared to see how much stone that quarry can produce now. Although the actual pit of the quarry, like the place where I'm sort of digging down to the earth, is fairly small. It's just I have a whole like quarry site now. It's pretty cool. I think in a future episode I want to fully decorate it. I already have a couple decorations around there, but I want to kind of make that whole place look like a big, sort of mining, like a big mining area out there. So maybe a future episode idea. In fact, yes, that will definitely be a future episode. So, yeah, slight spoiler alert. Not really spoiling too much, but late spoiler alert. Man, I cannot recommend building a super smelter early in your Minecraft world enough. They're so useful, especially if you don't have a silk touch pickaxe, because you can get the natural versions of stones fairly quickly. This 16 furnace smelting system is very quick. It smelts things in batches of 16, which means you can do a stack in 4 furnace cycles if it's working properly. If the item distribution system works properly. Sometimes, since it's minecart based, the server lag causes weird things to happen, but generally it works. The item distribution system works really well, and they're just so useful for getting natural stone, especially again before you get silk touch. They're so useful. Okay, so I've gotten all the stuff in the shulker boxes, and it's kind of a lot of stuff to be selling, but it's definitely not going to be the most profit the shop will see, hopefully, if people actually end up shopping here. And I actually had the idea that because this shop is kind of boring right now, like it's not going to really draw your attention, I had the idea of putting up sort of a colorful wool awning over it to sort of draw people's attention. And I thought that white and purple would look good because it's contrasty enough against the landscape, and it's sort of mystical, sort of mystical colors, because I want this shop to feel sort of mystical, like a traveling trader wagon or something from faraway lands. So that's kind of why I went with the white and purple, because purple to me sort of seems like, magical, like the ender chest particles and the enchanted books, I'm actually starting to see a trend here. Nether portals are purple, enchanted books or enchanted anything has a purple glow. Is purple like some sort of magical color? Okay, so I'm actually fairly happy with how the awning turned out. It's, it's nothing special, but it grabs your attention from far away, which is its only purpose. It's just there to grab your attention. So it serves its purpose fine. It's, it also, I couldn't really decide whether I wanted it facing, whether I wanted this little overhang facing this way or this way, but I decided this way since this is where the entrance is, and, I'd assume the owner of the shop, like the actual, traveling merchant, would probably, whenever the, the shop moved, they'd probably just roll this up. So this is probably just a little temporary overhang. And yeah, I just think this whole awning actually, it grabs your attention from spawn, which is over here. So if we just fly over here, you can see the awning from over here, whereas before it kind of blended in because most of the shop was brown, so kind of blended in with the landscape. But now that kind of grabs your attention a bit more. But the next thing that we're gonna need to do is start stocking the shop, and just to kind of keep things simple, I'm pretty much just gonna have a standard way of labeling the price. So on the side, it's just gonna be like, four diamonds, like 4 diamonds per 4, and then put 1 diamond in the corner, and then have the product at the top. So, just to keep it simple and kind of, tell everyone, kind of tell everyone where to put their diamonds and how much it costs. So, deep slate would be, 4 diamonds per stack. It's just kind of, it kind of is simple, I guess. So I think I'm gonna finish stocking this up, and then we'll move on to the next thing I'd like to work on in this video. Alright, so I've gotten everything in, the barrels, and I actually had to destroy this barrel because there was no convenient place to put the sign, because this sign had to go here and this sign was going to go here. So I just had to take out 1 barrel, but that still leaves us room for another barrel. So there's going to be 7 available spots for merchandise right now. That might change in the future. I could put another barrel here or something, but currently there's 7 spots, and I'm filling 6 of them right now. It's cobblestone, stone, deep slate, carrots, honeycomb, and copper. And I think this is a fairly decent selection right now. Things that maybe people don't have a ton of, and things that I know I'm fairly sure I'm the only person who has, like honeycomb. I'm the only person who has honeycomb right now. So this should make me quite a bit of profit for the first while, until I have to restock or something, or potentially even change the stock like I at first suggested, in case I just run out of that material. So we'll see what happens in the future. But the next thing I'd like to work on in the town is to start, I'd like to start getting a sort of harbor set up. So maybe set up a perimeter, like a reinforcement wall around the coast, or around the banks of the river, and also get maybe some cranes and things over there, some barrels, sort of to suggest that there's quite a bit of trade in the town, as there were in medieval towns with river access. They had quite a bit of trade because there were convenient places to have your traders stop with their boats and pick up new items to trade and bring onto towns further down the river, and also trade with the town that they'd stopped at. So definitely a realistic feature in a medieval town, and also definitely something that's very fun to recreate in Minecraft. So I think I'm gonna head on back to the base, and well, I don't need to gather any stone from the quarry because I already have a very large amount of it. So I think we're just gonna get building, actually. Alright folks, so I've gotten all the materials that I'm going to need for the docks build in this shulker box, and it's a lot of stone, not a lot of other materials, a stack of stone bricks and a stack of andesite and some dark oak logs. Now, the reason I use dark oak logs is because I feel like they'll contrast a bit better with the primarily, since we're primarily using spruce in the village, or at least spruce logs, I decided that dark oak would be the way to go, because I think that it'll contrast with the spruce logs a bit better, and the oak logs that I'm using in this and that. So we're going to use dark oak for the docks, and of course stone, because that's definitely a essential building material in any medieval city. Stone, or at least now in the modern version of Minecraft, and the modern versions of Minecraft, deep slate's also an option, but I don't think we're going to be making the docks out of deep slate, since I think that deep slates generally should be used in at least in my opinion, I prefer to use deep slate in things like roofs, just an accent block, because it's super dark. It's a super dark block. But I want these docks to follow the shape of the coastline, but I think I'm going to sort of smooth out the coastline. Or not smooth out the coastline, but smooth out the docks. So any time there's like kind of a steep curve right here, I could just kind of smooth it out, maybe make it a 2-step curve, because definitely having it follow the coastline exactly would make the docks very sort of jagged looking. So I think we're going to smooth it out a bit. But I think we're just going to do this. I don't think we're going to do this in the form of a time lapse, because we already did. I've been doing quite a few time lapses, and I think it's time to get a little bit of a break from the time lapse, a bit of a breath of fresh air. So no third-person time lapse, but definitely some progress updates. So see you guys once I've started building the docks and in the next progress update. Funny story. This thing, I built this little contraption because Fake Blossom had given me an axolotl, and I thought it would be fun to sort of put the actually I also just found some axolotls, but I first built this because Fake Blossom had given me an axolotl in a bucket. So I built a bunch of gates to kind of, you know, put the axolotl, kind of make a little sanctuary for it, but so it didn't get away. Turns out the fences definitely glitch out the axolotl's AI quite a bit, so I just broke them, and now the axolotl is wandering around somewhere in this river. Don't know where, but it's now swimming around somewhere in this river. Probably never gonna see it again, but it's nice to know that this animal is now free out in the river. Alright, so like I was saying, this, you know, kind of where it pops out a bit here, you know, kind of bulges out a bit here, the river line, I kind of just extended it out a bit more, so it felt a bit more curved and a lot less flat. Like, this is definitely more of a cube shape, or it's definitely not more of a curved shape, so I kind of just extended the docks a bit further out to kind of keep the sort of curve of the riverbanks going. Alright, so I've extended the line of the docks roughly to about the beginning of the dark oak forest, because I think this is probably going to be sort of like a border for the docks in general. So this is probably where the docks are going to end, in the western direction or eastern direction. This is the eastern direction, but I would assume the docks are going to continue further west, since this area has a bit more open land. Here you're going to start running into the forest, and it would make less sense to have the docks continue this way than that way, since that way is just more plains over there. So now I'm going to start building up the sort of walkway that the docks are going to be on, since they're going to be a block above the river, and then there's going to be another sort of border block around them, like another railing. So they're actually going to be 2 blocks above the river. This is pretty much how tall they're going to be. So they're going to have, you know, this is going to be the level of the walkway right here, and then there's going to be a sort of border, and then of course the pillars that are going to come up another block higher than the pillar. So these are going to be quite tall, sort of formidable trading docks, as well as being functional for trading. They're also going to be quite imposing, and also probably a very good way to defend this town as well. And the word that I meant, the phrase that I meant when I said like a support wall for, you know, the coast or the riverbank, was a retaining wall. That's the function of these as well, is to sort of prevent the coast from sliding into the river. I'm actually now thinking that in the future, maybe we could have another sort of road up here that kind of makes this a tiered section of road, so that this is sort of the harbor area, and then up here this is where all the buildings would be. So down here this is mainly sort of cranes and docks and things, and then up here this is where all of the harbor, you know, shops and things would be, making it so that this place was more open land for trade. Alright, so I've gotten all the support pillars set up, and I've made them roughly 5 blocks apart, when it was a bit inconvenient to make them 5 blocks apart, because it was, you know, on the corner of a block or something. I didn't bother. I either added a block or subtracted one. Usually I added one, because 4 blocks is annoying. It just seems way too small of a distance between the pillars. But most of them are roughly 5 blocks apart, and I'm fairly happy with how this is looking so far. Now all I need to do is finish up this sort of support wall, and of course put little, you know, tops on these, because the tops of the logs don't look very great. So, you know, put little toppers on them, all of them, and then finish up this little railing here, or little support wall, and then get working on the decorations for this place. You know, putting some cranes, barrels, that kind of thing in here, just making it feel more like a functioning port rather than just sort of a little retaining wall on here. Alright, folks, so I'm actually really happy with how this sort of, the whole docks turned out in general, and I think there are a few things that could be fixed, like potentially sort of smoothing things like this out, sort of unnecessary little jagged edges right there, but in general, I'm fairly happy with how this whole place turned out. And the next thing I'd like to work on is adding a few things like cranes and barrels and things to sort of make it feel like it's more of a functioning port and less of a, you know, just a sort of retaining wall keeping all the dirt from sliding into the riverbed. So all I'm gonna do is sort of add a few cranes and things, probably experiment with some designs and like in a creative testing world, and then probably bring them back to the InfinityCraft server after I've sort of figured out what kind of designs I'd like to have around here. And again, things like that where it's just a really flat edge, I'm gonna have to fix in the future. Alright, so I've gotten a fairly simple crane design put together in a creative testing world, and this is all the stuff I'm going to need for it. Fairly simple, and I think I'm probably going to construct it somewhere around, somewhere with a wide stretch of, kind of, maybe, perhaps here, because basically the point of this is going to be to, you know, reach over, grab cargo out of, you know, maybe barges or something that's in the water, and then, you know, turn around and put it onto the, you know, the street or something, you know, transport it onto the street, something that people who are in the ships would have a harder time doing. So potentially putting it here would make sense. This is kind of, I keep wasting rockets, or potentially over here where the harbor kind of comes out a bit, like maybe here. That'd also work pretty well. But I think I'm gonna just construct this crane and then potentially sort of decorate the harbor with some barrels and things, and yeah, we'll see how it looks. Alright, so I've finished the sort of beginning stages of decorating the harbor area, and all I did was, of course, build this crane. It's hauling up some barrels from maybe a barge that's down here, something that I'll probably build in the future, and then I've just scattered some barrels around here, sort of to make it feel like, you know, maybe there's some fish and things that's being hauled up from, like, maybe a fishing industry around here. Definitely gonna have some fishermen villagers sort of wandering around the harbor eventually once we have it well lit, because right now it's infested with zombies, so we'd have a major zombification problem. So definitely going to have to light this place up better in the future, but I think this harbor definitely looks nice along the river you know, along the riverbank, and definitely also adds quite a bit to the you know, to the thriving town that we have going now. It sort of makes the river more of a feature and less of almost a nuisance, kind of, because before the river was kind of a nuisance, or it didn't look very nice, but now I feel like this sort of makes the river into more of a feature. But I think this is where we're going to leave off today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next InfinityCraft episode. My name is VoidDoctor, and I'm out. Peace.